In our last segment, we saw that Jesus, who is our example in all things, knew the love of God as part of his ongoing experience as a man. Now, we're going to take a look right now at this reality. Jesus commanded us to abide in a conscious relationship with him. He commanded us to abide in his love. Now, we're going to be taking a look at John chapter 15, verses 1 through 9. Before I begin, although you will be reading these verses, I just want to mention that at the time that this was written, at the time when these words were heard, they weren't being read, they were being heard. And Jesus, like any teacher, he used repetition in order to drive a point home. So let's take a look here at John chapter 15, verses 1 through 8. The Lord said, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit he takes away, and every branch that bears fruit he prunes it, that it may bear more fruit. You are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine, so neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me, he who abides in me, and I in him, he bears much fruit, for apart from me you can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away as a branch and dries up, and they gather them and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish, and it shall be done for you. By this is my Father glorified, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples." So here's the context. Jesus is about to leave his disciples, and he is communicating to them the things which he wants them to remember. Now, this section of Scripture shows the Messiah stressing a priority to his disciples. What is this priority? Well, we said it over and over again, abide in me. And this section of Scripture is about what will happen if you abide in Jesus. Now, remember, many people desire to abide in the Lord, but it's left up to their imagination as to how to do it. Do they abide in his zeal? Do they abide in his desire for integrity or righteousness? Do they desire to abide in his visionary experiences? You know, Jesus seeing Nathanael under the fig tree. How about his teaching? How about his doctrine? How about his self-sacrificing lifestyle? But in spite of all of the questions that we might have, if we go on to the next verse, we find that Jesus himself tells us how he wants us to do it. He said this, "Abiding in me is abiding in my love for you." John chapter 15, verse 9. "Just as the Father has loved me, I have also loved you. Abide in my love." Now, can you imagine? There's the Lord talking to his disciples and repeating over and over again, "Abide in me, abide in me." He says this 5 times. Now, by the 3rd time that he begins to say, "Abide in me," these disciples who are listening intently, they are sort of filling in what it is that he's saying. If you abide in, and they're going in their minds, me. If you abide in me, abide in me. And then finally he gets down to this part of his speech, and he says, "Just as the Father has loved me, I have also loved you." And he says, "Abide in," and they're filling in me. He's going to say, "Abide in me," and he throws them a change of pace. He throws them this, "Abide in my love." Now this must have astonished them, because really, he's saying, "Abide in me." How could they possibly know what he was speaking of? Well, the Lord was saying, I want you to remain in a conscious awareness of my love for you. I want you to abide in my love just as I abide in my Father's love. Remember, we are after an inner conformity to the image of the Son of the living God, and this begins in abiding in the love of Jesus.